What do you think the best advice you ever received was?
On stand up or in life?
Stand up first, then life.
Stand up first was Keith Robinson, goofy ass. Um, he told me, he said, he's like, yo, God has blessed you with misfortune and you ain't using it. Because when I was doing comedy, I was just talking about random shit. And he was the first like person I told in comedy. They was like, oh yeah, I grew up in foster care. A lot of people didn't know. They just because like I still have a relationship with my mom and I don't talk to my foster parents. So anyone knows me, they go, oh, his mom and his sister and stuff. But when he asked me, he was like, what was your life like? How'd you grow up? And I was like, I grew up in foster care. I didn't really have nothing going on. He was like, foster care? Nigga, talk about that. He's like, God gave you a shitty life and you ain't going. He was like, that's comedy gold. He was like, your childhood was fucked up. And I was like, oh, I never saw it that way. And it was like 2 years of me just bombing, but just like really focusing on that specific type of material, like applying my sense of humor to this subject matter.
Why do you say it was 2 years of you bombing?
Because it was 2 years of me just trying to figure it out. Because I had shows where I'm like, my mom was on drugs, and you can see people like, ooh, and they see like,
right,
God, this is uncomfortable. But I had to get through that uncomfortableness. I say 2 years because I went hard at it. It wasn't like sometimes you'll be like, all right, I'll slowly usher myself into a new set. Like I'll start doing like getting rid of one joke. I was like, fuck that. I'm in New York. This is like, we all know who Keith Robinson is. I'm I got a vet telling me like some really good information. I was like, no one knows who I am. And I also just trust him. He was like, yo, if you open up about your life and you really like take the time to make that shit funny, your career, your life is going to change. And I just believed him.
Yeah.
I just went, all right, let me see what this old nigga talking about. And I did it. And I remember, like, I used to call him like, yo, I did this joke, but it ain't working. It ain't working. He was like, so? And I'm like, all right. He's like, yeah. He's like, he would say shit that'll help me. Like, why you being a whore for laughter? How you going to know what's funny if all you're doing is trying to say the funny shit? Like, he was like, you gotta construct. He's like, he was trying to teach me how to do a bit. He was like, you got to have information in there so when people listen to your joke, not only are they laughing, but they're like, fuck, like it's sitting with them. They leave with something. And I just believed it. And I was like, all right, I got to try it. And 2 years after that, he was right because I got Montreal, Just for Laughs. Like a lot of stuff started opening up, like doing colleges. And I was like, fuck, this old motherfucker is right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really awesome.
That was really good advice.
Wow.
I still try to like, live by that where I'm like, all right, no matter what I talk about, how does it tie into me and my experience? Yeah. Like even with topical stuff.
Right. And it's like only you could be saying that kind of thing. Wow. Do you feel like people have reached out to you saying like they've had similar experiences, like they grew up in foster care?
Yeah, that was the thing that I seen everything he said. I saw it. Like the moment I started getting laughs from foster care material or just talking about how I grew up, I would just see people like after the show, like most time after the show, people just come, you're really funny. People would stick around and be like, yo, man, I had a cousin grow up in that shit. Or my mom was on drugs. We weren't in foster care, but I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
Oh, the way you make that shit so funny, man. And this, that, and the third. And I was like, all right, he's on to something.
Yeah, it's emotional. That's really cool. That joke you have about learning that your foster mom made money from having you. Yeah. That one is so.
Thank you.
That is crazy.
Thank you. Yeah, I had that. Also, he told me, he was like, take what you know and compare it to what they say it's supposed to happen. So he always was like, do your research. He's like, if you're going to talk about something on stage, he was like, not the easiest way, but the best way to find funny is you take your experience and then you read and research other experiences so you can go, oh, that wasn't my experience. All right, I'll talk about that. So one of the first jokes that I did about foster care that got a good laugh was I grew up in foster care. And if you don't know what foster care is, boop, 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 boop. Like they take you out of this environment and place you in the same exact environment. I did that joke because I remember just reading brochures about foster care.
Right.
And which I never did. I was in the system for my entire childhood.
Yeah.
All the way up until at least like 21. And I never read a brochure about foster care or any of that shit. And I just like was going to different websites and reading and seeing all these smiling kids and like, yo, welcome to the Foster of America. We take kids from environments and this, that, and the third, and we give them a better life. And I'm like, no, the fuck you don't. Most of these, especially in New York. I grew up in Philly, but in New York, I'm like, most foster parents live in the projects.
Yeah.
I'm like, how are you taking that kid from one situation and you putting that motherfucker, you just walking them around the corner. And I just simplified that joke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I took all that information and I was like, but what's the quickest, funniest way to get that point across in that laugh?
Right.
So, yeah.
That's interesting, like researching your own experience.
Yeah.
And that kind of like makes you more objective about it and like explain it better.
Yeah.
That's
because
cool.
now you can just be like, well, this is what they say is supposed to happen, but this is what actually happened to me.
Right.
Yeah.